It is known as the White Marble Temple. It is said that behind the cool elegance of the facade, the 9 justices fight like scorpions. They have the task of ensuring that the actions of government don't violate the Constitution. And that has put the court at the center of one political storm after another. On abortion, the court ruled that state governments can't preempt a woman's right to choose, and that ruling is the basis for America's abortion laws. On race, the court's decision since the 1950s on the desegregation of schools and positive discrimination in employment have had every bit as much impact as the actions of Congress and the White House.
In all godliness and honesty.
On the vexed issue of religion and education, it was the court that ruled against prayer in the classroom and against compulsory teaching of creationism. And in a test of power with the president, the court asserted its authority by forcing President Nixon to give up the complete contents of the Watergate tapes. The 9 who wield such powers are appointed, not elected, and can't be sacked by a president or Congress. When one of them dies or retires, as Justice Powell did last week, the appointment of a replacement is given almost as much attention as a presidential nomination.
Today is one of my worst moments. I leave the court with a great deal of sadness.
Lewis Powell, the Virginia gentleman as he was called, is approaching 80, a relatively young age by Supreme Court standards. He was neither a hardline conservative nor an ideological liberal. He described his judicial philosophy like this.
I don't characterize myself in any way. I was a practicing lawyer for a third of a century, and I decide each case on the basis of the facts and law of that case and in light of the Constitution and relevant statutes.
That philosophy gave Justice Powell a crucial position on the court. Of the 9 justices, 4 generally come down on the conservative side, 4 are classed as liberals. Powell's was the so-called swing vote that decided the controversial cases. And although he often voted with the conservatives on the bench, on many of the key social issues, he went with the liberals here. The Supreme Court is supposed to be above politics, but the rulings handed down from the bench can have such a profound impact on American society that the justices often find themselves at the center of political debate. And party politics intrudes here in one crucial respect. The justices are appointed by a politician, the president. Nothing could be more controversial or more political than this president's decision to replace the moderate Lewis Powell with the deeply conservative Robert Borke. Borke himself was silent on the occasion of his appointment, but his views are well known, and he supports the president's position that the Supreme Court shouldn't be pressing the pace of social change.
Judge Borke, widely regarded as the most prominent and intellectually powerful advocate of judicial restraint, shares my view that judges' personal preferences and values should not be part of their constitutional interpretations.
This is not the first time the president has had a chance to appoint a judge of his own ideological caste. He named the first woman to the court, Sandra Day O'Connor, another conservative. And last year he promoted Justice Reinquest to Chief Justice and brought Antonin Scalia onto the bench. The most recent appointment could put the seal on a conservative revolution that will continue long after Mr. Reagan has left office. There is one hurdle to overcome before Robert Borke can sit on the bench to complete the conservative majority. He must be confirmed by the Senate, and he has a past that may make that difficult. As Solicitor General in 1973, he obeyed Nixon's order to fire the Watergate Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox, after both his superiors in the Justice Department had resigned in protest.
I did it because it was apparent at the time I was called upon to make the decision that the decision of the President to discharge Mr. Cox was final and irrevocable.
And since Chief Justice Reinquest was confirmed after hearings by the Judiciary Committee last summer, the Senate has fallen into Democratic hands. Democratic reaction to Judge Borke's nomination suggests there may be a tough confirmation fight ahead.
President Reagan is still our president, but he should not be able to reach out from the muck of Irangate, reach into the muck of Watergate, and impose his reactionary vision of the Constitution on the Supreme Court and on the next generation of Americans. No justice would be better than this injustice.
Leaving home this morning, Judge Borke refused to answer questions about Senate confirmation. Getting this man on the bench may be the toughest fight of the president's final months, but Mr. Reagan believes that the prize of a conservative court is worth fighting for.